we are in this environment of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and in this type of environment, you have to be super relevant for your customers. I don't mean just relevant, I mean super relevant, uncannily relevant for your audience. You need to reduce their efforts in doing what's going to be best for their organization. And the baseline for that is trust.
We have the pleasure of welcoming Daryn to our interview series. Let's begin with just a quick intro of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 30,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case possible. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, Daryn is an experienced leader, mentor, and coach, and immensely enjoys leading talented and successful teams. During his 34 years in IT, he has built a reputation for effective leadership throughout change and transition. Daryn is enthusiastic and knowledgeable about digital marketing, customer experience, CRM, SaaS, cloud computing, enterprise social network, sales effectiveness, and solution selling. He's a serial entrepreneur that seeks to not only adapt to a rapidly changing marketing environment, but to help create and lead the future of industry. Before we get the inside scoop from Daryn himself, remember to subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content for throughout the leaders around the globe. Hi, Daryn.
Hi Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great.
So, Daryn, moving on to the first question, what's the deal crash sales methodology all about?
Okay, so deal crash is actually the opposite of a sales methodology. Actually, it's the antithesis of a sales methodology.
Okay.
Because deal crash is around major deals. So when a major deal is lost by a large corporation, it's a complex loss. It's a multifactorial situation. Everybody likes to look for the smoking gun, the one aspect that's caused a deal to be lost. And when they think they found it, they consign the deal to history and they move on to the next one. Yeah. Now, what growth organizations are starting to do is analyze their deal losses as the best source of ROI for feeding that information into their in-flight deals and their future deals. Because it's growth organizations like this that are willing to learn from their failures that'll be the most successful in the future. And just to give a bit more information about that, most sales organizations today, they have a fixed mindset. And what I mean by a fixed mindset is when they lose a deal, they will want to brush it under the carpet or look for that one headline cause for failure and then move on. But with these complex deals, there are human factors that can be involved. There are value proposition factors. There are customer reference factors perhaps involved in those, or a combination of all of those that can go wrong. Now, I looked at the best industry that analyzes failure and puts recommendations in place. And I came upon the aviation industry as the best because the stakes are very high. Lives can be lost if these lessons aren't learned. So what I've done with Deal Crash within the book, which will be published shortly, is that I looked at the methodology of the aviation crash investigators, like the NTSB in the States and the AAIB in the UK, and I carefully looked at their methodology. Everything from when they secure the crash site, to recovering the black box from the aircraft, to analyzing all of the data methodically and objectively with one purpose in mind, and that is to prevent recurrence of the same incident happening again. Not to find blame, not to chase down any scapegoats, but to prevent that loss happening again. And that's precisely what we want to do in the world of complex B2B sales. We want to prevent the loss happening and not look for scapegoats. So the deal crash methodology shows customers how to drag the black box out of the burning wreckage of their lost deals, analyze it properly, and make sure that they inform in-flight deals as well as new opportunities and deals coming along. So it significantly reduces the fact. It's strange. If you speak to a sports person, Hatim, they will tell you that they learn more from their failures and their lost races or their lost competitions than they do from their won events or their won races. And we should be doing the same in the world of sales. And that's why Deal Crash is not another one of the 5,000 sales methodologies or sales books that are out there. In fact, there are no books on deal loss analysis, major deal loss analysis. It amazes me every day.
I think that's great. I mean, it just not applies to sales, but it kind of applies to everyday life as well.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
That's really amazing. Moving on to the second question, how will sales transform for post the COVID crisis? Any particular points that you'd like our viewers to keep in mind while planning their strategies?
Yes, and that's a massive question, Atim. It's a massive question because we're in the middle of a massive crisis, right? Where have you heard this term of VUCA? VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So the military use this term. So we're in an environment where VUCA is high. Now, when we emerge from the COVID crisis, as bad as it is, a lot of things will change. Now, a lot of the changes we know about already, we can forecast those, and I'll talk about those in a second. But a lot of changes we won't understand. And anybody tells you that they understand how everything's going to change in a post-COVID world, they are trying to sell you.
Right.
So here's what I think. What I know is there'll be a consolidation in a lot of markets. So there'll be acquisitions, and there'll be organizations that simply go out of business. You might find yourself as a salesperson or a customer experience expert working for a different organization because of this. Or you might find yourself in the middle of a sales cycle selling to an organization and suddenly everything's on hold because they've been acquired or they're acquiring another organization that already has what you're selling. So there's got to be consolidation. Working remotely is here to stay. Maybe we'll go back to a hybrid of physical and remote, but remote working will be a major component of selling, and therefore differentiating your value proposition is going to be more difficult. Making sure that you differentiate yourself from the competition, making sure you can grab the attention of your customer and retain that attention. And the secret to this is that you've got to be hyper relevant to the customer in the market. And what that means is that you need to understand their market intimately and have a high level of empathy. So emotional intelligence within the sales team is going to be a really sought after skill, as well as artificial intelligence that we'll talk about later on. One of the closest analogues to what's happening now, Hatim, is the financial crash of 2008, 2009, around that time. And in the year or two following that, emerged the Challenger sale, which most people in the sales business will have read and they'll understand and they'll know the concept of the Challenger. What you need to do is you need to read Challenger sale, but you need to put it on steroids, because you're going to need to use those challenging skills, which means absolutely understanding the customer's market, absolutely being relevant to them, teaching the customer about their own organization, their processes, their market, their customers. So you've got to bring that expert power to those sales situations, because it's a real battle for budget at the moment. CFOs are looking for maximum liquidity. They need cash in the bank, and anything that takes that cash out of their bank is their enemy. And I know CFOs, and I know that they are highly focused on liquidity at the moment in this current crisis. So what we're going to see is this seismic disruption caused by COVID causing a change in business models. So what I'd say to organization is look at your business model, because I can bet your bottom dollar that new entrants will come into your market with transformative, disruptive business models that will appeal to your customers' CFOs more than yours. It happened, in the sharing economy with people like Uber, with software as a service way back in the noughties with Salesforce, with Salesforce.com and SaaS and cloud applications. This is a kind of soup, a kind of chemical soup that's ready for the spark, where somebody's going to come in with a disruptive business model because of the changed environment after COVID. So you need to spend more time finding out about the customer's market and talking about the customer's issues before you ever go near your solution. There's something in Challenger called the mental model, and the mental model A is really going across to your customer side of the bridge and understanding intimately their life, their environment, their market, their customers, the customer's customer, before you even start challenging with your own solutions and your own areas. Customers, companies that have got a strong customer base will survive and thrive, because we always have ups and downs in the market, right? When we have ups, smart companies invest in capturing new logos and look after their existing business. In the troughs, in the down cycle, people use the fact that they've invested heavily in building up their customer base to then drive cheap growth, cheap sales, because it's 5 to 7 times cheaper to sell to an existing customer as it is to win a new one. And that metric will probably go up in a post-COVID world. So if you're looking for sustainability from a business perspective, then you need to invest in new logo capture when markets are up, and you need to be able to effectively harvest that based on loyalty and customer trust when markets are down. Yeah. So long answer, but that was a huge question that you asked, Hatim.
Yeah, but it was an excellent answer. I think that, personally, I feel that, this is something that makes sense, and it's, it's not just post-COVID, but we are seeing recession in the upcoming years as well. At least in my professional life, I'm going to be seeing at least thrice. So it's definitely going to help me.
Great. I'm pleased to hear it.
Moving on to the next question. How will investing in AI and automation be important? What advantages will bring in?
Well, I think it's absolutely vital, because if you don't do that, I think that you're overexposed to organizations that effectively do it. And I think the gulf between the people that get AI and machine learning and the people that don't get AI and machine learning will be the difference between survival or death in this industry. I'm going to stick to B2B because I've been focusing on business to business so far. And the big difference with B2B buying and selling groups is that with B2C, it's relatively easy. You have one buyer and you've got your organization that sells to them and services them through the life cycle. Everybody will have seen the infinity loop of customer experience, where we go through acquisition loops and we go through ownership loops, and we want to keep our customers enclosed in that nice infinity loop.
Yeah.
Now with B2B, you've got a complex buying group, and the Challenger sale tells us that, way back in 2011, that was about 5.4 individuals. Today, it's more like 6.8 individuals in the average buying group. So you've got a complex buying group, and you've got your organization. So you've got this very complex many-to-many relationship between the two organizations, where there are maybe hundreds of different combinations of relationships there. Where you need AI and machine learning is to understand the behavior, sentiment, and intent of that buying group before they even approach you as an organization. Everybody quotes this statistic about the 57% mark. If you look at the path to purchase for a B2B organization, they are 57% along their path to purchase before they approach any vendor organization to talk about purchasing. So what are they doing in that 57%? What they're doing is researching, talking to analysts, perhaps talking to their peers in the industry. You need to know this. You need to intercept that behavior and be able to put your content, your top of funnel content, in front of them, so you're front of mind when they are making the important decisions. Stepping back from that 57% mark, if we look at the 37% mark, this is when all of the scope and all the important decisions about procurement are made. Who's part of the buying group? What's the scope? What's the budget? So you need to be influencing way back at the start of the consideration of organizations. And this is where the AI and machine learning comes in, so that you can, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, I think, in the conversation, where you can deploy that technology to manage that complexity. And here's the final thing I'll say on this one, Hatim, and that is that when you're looking at B2C, you're working with big data. You have an ocean of data, and AI loves volume, right? Because with volume, AI can do some very clever things based on hundreds and thousands of records and micro segments, that sort of thing. Now, when you look at small data in the B2B area, we need much more behavioral science and machine learning in that area to be able to effectively deploy that technology. So it's a new frontier for AI and machine learning, as well as being essential to, you know, the success of future B2B organizations. Small data. Did that answer your question though, Hatim?
Yeah, I think that did pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, so the next question would be, do you believe marketing automation will play a significant role in future? What aspects of digital marketing cycle can be automated? And again, what role would AI play over here?
AI has always played a big role in marketing automation. And when I say AI, I mean primitive AI, perhaps before machine learning really, made AI, proper artificial intelligence, kind of smarter intelligence. And the areas that I think, if you look at that life cycle, if we go back to that 57% figure, before the customer approaches the vendor, this keeps marketing organizations, this keeps the CMO up at night. How do you influence and get to the customer in that 57%? This is why often customer experience initiatives are led by marketing, because they're on the hook for building pipeline before that 57% mark. Now, what that involves is sentiment analysis, so that we can understand what our buying groups are doing out there. It requires really good third-party data management platforms that capture those many millions, if not billions, of micro transactions that build the intent of customers. So once you've intercepted that intent, then you can do two things. You can retarget B2B advertising on the appropriate platforms to those organizations, and you already see those through things like LinkedIn, Zing, those types of things. But also you can do what I call deep lead scoring using artificial intelligence. Okay. Lead scoring itself is, we've had that for a while, and it says, well, if 4 people in the organization download a white paper on a particular subject, then the flashing light goes off, they're interested, let's put an outbound call into them, right?
Right.
But we've got to go deeper than that now. We've got to figure out what's the sentiment. What are these people commenting on and looking at in social media? What do other organizations like this organization tend to do when they following that behavior? In other words, what do lookalike audiences do when they're further down the line? And what can we learn from lookalike audiences that inform what this organization is going to do once it's downloaded a white paper or an ROI analysis tool or a customer reference, and those types of things. Then you need AI to recommend the next best action, the NBA of your marketing team and your sales team, right? What sort of content, what sort of intervention would best grab the attention of your buyers? And that also might involve, by the way, some of the AI that's starting to be built into the A/B testing applications or multivariate testing applications in marketing that are able to figure out, what format of web page is more appealing, what type of content is more appealing to a customer. So again, just needs AI in those areas. But even further down the line, in terms of marketing, things like dynamic pricing. What are the price tolerances of organizations in that industry buying those products? And I know that a lot of organizations are starting to experiment with this. Game theory comes into AI. So if I've got a portfolio of 20 different products, maybe on my catalog, and all of these products are equally applicable. Well, you think they're equally applicable to a particular company. If you apply game theory, what would be the best one to start with that would unlock the door to selling those other products within that organization? What's the optimum entry point for you that's going to cause you to have a bigger average product per customer further down the ownership cycle?
Yeah.
So that's just the start. And that's just digital marketing, Hatim, we've spoken about. So many areas of digital marketing are going to start relying more and more on AI. And we're just in the first generation, or we're just coming out of the first generation. You guys know you're at the forefront of what you do in this area.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about pricing. So I would like to, just add a follow-up question to it as to what do you feel would be more better? Like you have one price for one thing, or, something like a McDonald's Happy Meal kind of a thing. That, I'll just simplify it for you. It's a burger, fries, and ketchup.
I'll give you a better analogy than that, actually, in terms of dynamic pricing. And that is that if I phone my telephone provider, my telephone network operator, and I say, I'd like to disconnect, please, because that's always my opening line when I talk to my telephone provider. And so what happens then is they connect me to my personal disconnection manager, like you need a personal disconnection manager, right? And I'll ask you the question: what's the one job that personal disconnection manager is quota driven on with me? What's his one objective?
To retain you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I've worked in these environments before. Those agents, they have they have an ARPU, average revenue per user number, and they have they know what the break-even number is. They know exactly within the penny how much they can discount and still make a margin. So they'll start negotiating with me. What would it take to keep you with our company? So that sort of area of AI, it will be informed by that, and it's bringing those techniques to the B2B world. At the moment, what happens is, if we haven't built a strong enough value proposition for a customer, then our only our only response to potentially losing the deal is discount, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you need to make sure that you don't assign bad business. It's the same for a B2B organization as it is for their B2C equals. There's a such thing as bad business. And so I think AI will optimize and say, look, this is the optimum pricing that you can give, which gives you enough margin, and it gives them. Now, if you figure out you don't have to go to that level, you already know it's good business. But when you cross into the bad business line, then AI and machine learning will say, hold on, let's just walk away, save our resources, because there are plenty of other opportunities in the pipeline. And if we sign this, it'll be bad business. We might want to override it. We might want to say, we need a foothold in this business, in this industry, so I'm going to override that. It might be, we believe that this organization might be acquired by somebody and we want to get a foothold in there. So there's overrides, but essentially, we need to know what the optimum pricing is for a particular client.
Right. So how do you see conversational agents acting as an aid to an organization's salespeople?
Right. Well, conversational agents, I think, whether they're voice or chatbots, I think they're getting some traction, and it's going to depend on the intelligence that sits beneath them. And I think there's two sides to this. There's the customer-facing side, and there's the internal-facing side. So which would you like me to chat about first then, Hatim, of the two of those?
So I think the front end with the customer point, yeah.
Yeah, so from a customer perspective, I think that conversational technologies can be a really big aid to subtly qualifying organizations, so that we can understand whether they're serious buyers, or whether it maybe is somebody just researching the market ahead of an acquisition next year. Yeah. Either one is good, but we just need to know. And so through conversational interfaces, they're not talking to a salesperson, they're just wanting to maybe get some gated content from you. Conversational interfaces will be clear there. When companies are in the funnel, we can even use those for a level of discovery. I mean, if you're in B2B and it's more of a volume and velocity type of business, then we might be able to use that for doing some discovery about what the business pains are of an organization. But of course, that needs some more sophisticated intelligence sitting behind it, because then that can drive next best action, and that might be sending them some more assets. So we can apply the concepts of straight through processing to smaller business, right? Sales plays is another one. We want to tailor our sales plays to the individual organization. So per industry, size, geography, and a whole host of other metrics we might want to capture that then give us a sales play. But now we're moving more into the internal facing use of conversational agents. Okay. So just to expand a little bit more on that, Ben, I think if a salesperson wants to understand what the best propositions are, they could have a conversation with an internal bot, essentially an agent that would give them advice and guidance on what that sales play would be. And also, as a sales coach, at the moment, one of the biggest shortages that I see in sales organizations is effective coaching. So if you could automate using AI some of the elementary coaching for new salespeople, you can get those salespeople effective and generating revenue much earlier than you normally could, because they're in a queue. They booked a meeting sometime in a week's time or 2 weeks' time with their manager, and if they're a lucky guy or gal, they'll get some coaching from their manager. A lot of managers just don't coach or don't coach effectively. So by doing that elementary stage, next best action, what does the best salesperson do in this situation?
Right.
Then that will give people a head start. Organizations are always coming to me and saying, it's 9 months before a new salesperson starts going cash positive from the investment we've made in them.
Right.
If you can bring that down to 6 months, that's a massive increase in revenue for a lot of organizations.
Definitely.
But also, I mean, just to fold that around, there's also you can also apply that to negotiation. What's the optimum negotiating position? Just like we said in the pricing discussion,
Yeah.
And closing. But also going back to the customer side, our best marketing tool often is our service, especially when a customer is part of our install base. So using conversational agents to do more intelligent voice of customer analysis, and then doing maybe some voice or textual analysis on their responses to extract sentiment from that, will allow us to identify in a much better way customers who are big advocates, so we can use them for referencing and selling to other customers.
Yeah.
We could also identify organizations that are at risk of churn and falling off of our infinity loop.
Right.
And so it's in that feedback loop in support that we can do that. You know, I won't talk about the actual, you know, online support, the core support, because I think that's a well understood subject anyway, in terms of if people have a problem with their product or their service, going through that and escalating it to a professional, a real person. If it gets past the threshold of difficulty or a threshold of emotional content, that type of thing, and I think that side is better understood. So, but it all forms part of that, which is why AI and machine learning comes in. If I'm, I think if I'm looking into the future of this technology as well, you know, gazing onto the horizon, then I think we're going to see the growth of customer bots, customer agents.
Yeah.
That where a customer defines what their issue, their problem, or their need is, or their job to be done, as we call it often in customer experience mapping. Customer says what's the job to be done, and their agent goes away and does the searching and the researching and the gathering of information. So basically, in the future, their agent will talk to your agent,
Right.
and all of that will happen with no human contact until we get to that 57 or 60% part of the sales cycle.
I can just imagine, and that sounds really, you know, sometimes it's fearing, sometimes it's really, you know, just because of curiosity.
Because if I want a car, right? If I want to buy a car, and my agent will do some discovery on me and say, okay, what do you want it for? And I'll talk to it and say, yeah, this is what I want it for. Says, well, how many times a week are you going to use it? Do you want an electric vehicle? Do you want a hybrid, petrol? You know, how many seats does it need? Who's going to be there? Do you want it as a purchase, or do you want it as are you looking for something more kind of sharing economy, like, you know, like a car rental, you know, kind of rental club, or the type of a vehicle as a service type of thing? Then it'll go off into the wonderful world of other people's bots, and they will talk to them, come back with the best offers, top 3.
Maybe then we'll do SEO for the digital marketing agents, I guess.
Because basically people want in customer experience, and it all boils down to customer experience.
Right.
People want value for money, of course they do, but they want convenience and low workload with a high level of trust.
I think trust is something in B2B which plays like a major role.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think that we can use these intelligence agents to narrow down the field to say, okay, you want these things, you want, you know, this trustworthiness, you want value for money, you want much lower efforts. I recommend you deal with these 3 or 4 organizations.
Yeah.
So you know, it's I'm crystal ball gazing. I'm looking at the future now, but you know, the world of the future, the customer experience landscape of the future will look very much like the world today. It will be ambient. There'll be what I call ambient CX, ambient customer experience, where everything looks pretty much the same, but all of those those tough tasks, those drudgery things, the things that take my leisure time away, and they encroach on the time that I want to spend having more fun and doing the things I want to do. These things will be outsourced to my agents who'll go and do that stuff for me.
That'd be like super cool.
So watch this space. It's a slow, it's a gradual movement, but it will happen, and it's happening already.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I guess the thing that I want to go to is go back to that current state of affairs. We are in this environment of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and in this type of environment, you have to be super relevant for your customers. I don't mean just relevant; I mean super relevant, uncannily relevant for your audience. You need to reduce their efforts in doing what's going to be best for their organization. And the baseline for that is trust.
Okay.
That you need to build that trust and empathy so that they believe that you are the people that they want to partner on that journey to do that job. Because if you can help them make sense of this post-COVID world that we're coming into now, then you're going to lay the foundation for a long-term, trusted strategic relationship. But it needs a bit of paying forward. It needs you to understand, at a very fine-grained level of detail, the new environment that your customer is operating in and what the threats are within that environment. So that's my final thought, I think, Hatim.
I think that was great. And thank you so much for giving us your time. Your insights were really valuable. And I know our audience is really going to enjoy this interview.
Excellent. Thanks, Hatim. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Likewise, Daryn. Thank you so much.